let's get back to the task at hand. We're talking about Arbor Day Farm. You've got the restaurant that's inside the lead lodge, Timbers. You've got Porter's, which is kind of the barbecue restaurant. There are a couple different ways that you can dine at Arbor Day Farm, but when you kind of look at, if someone asks you, hey, well, what's the restaurant scene like out there, how would you describe it? Hey there, Omaha. Welcome into another episode of Restaurant Hoppen. I'm your host, Dan Hoppen, and like many people in Omaha, I have very fond memories of visiting the Arbor Day Farm as a kid in the lead lodge in Nebraska City. I remember apple picking and hiking and going swimming in the pool at the hotel with my family. Like, very good memories. What I don't remember is the food. And I think there are a couple reasons for that. One is I was a child and my palate wasn't really developed. I didn't know what I was doing when it came to eating. But two, I just don't know if the food was all that memorable. But that is changing now because there's a new chef on the staff. He's my guest today. He's going to break down kind of the changes that have been made and what you can expect when you go to Arbor Day Farm now. Chef Garrett Kasper, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you. Yep, good opening there, you know. Glad to see that your palate's matured more than a lot of people's has. So
I like to think it has. I still put ketchup on everything. That's good, right?
Not on everything, maybe.
Apparently,
but I have my own. I have a hot sauce thing, so hot sauce goes on everything.
Wait,
so.
no, you're a hot sauce guy?
Yeah.
I was joking about the ketchup, but I'm serious about hot sauce.
Yeah,
I love hot sauce.
A couple of the most versatile, best ones out there. My mom and dad just brought back some Terry Black's scorpion pepper barbecue hot sauce. That's really good. But the one that you can get just like every day is Melinda's honey habanero.
I haven't tried that.
Yeah, that's some good stuff. So get that. It goes on everything. Cheese. I just eat it on cheese. Just chunks of cheese, sandwiches. Whatever.
Well, this is already a fantastic start to the episode. I didn't know you were a hot sauce.
Yeah, and we make a lot of our own now too. Steve, one of our cooks that's been there for a while, he's made like 30 or 40 gallons of fermented hot sauces of different varieties. So we're kind of experimenting with that a little bit, but yeah, big hot sauce guy.
What's his best sauce? What's Steve's best?
Oh man, he did a peach habanero one with some Colorado peaches a couple weeks ago, and it turned out pretty good.
Oh God, I'm just like salivating thinking of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get back to the task at hand. We're talking about Arbor Day Farm. You've got the restaurant that's inside the lead lodge, Timbers. You've got Porter's, which is kind of the barbecue restaurant. There are a couple different ways that you can dine at Arbor Day Farm, but when you kind of look at, if someone asks you, hey, well, what's the restaurant scene like out there, how would you describe it?
At the foundation?
Yes.
I think, so we have the library lounge, which, at nighttime services a little bit more of the casual sandwiches, the people that aren't looking for maybe as much of a composed dish dining experience. Porter's is the barbecue restaurant. We've kind of put on some more seasonal stuff there to integrate the garden a bit more, and then some things that aren't barbecue related for people that just don't want to have barbecue 2 or 3 times a week. And then Timbers is probably the one where we've made the most drastic changes since I've been there. We've started menus on there about 6 months ago, and I think we've had 5 or 6 renditions since then. And this was a place that hadn't had menu changed in 4 years or so. So we've done a pretty extensive overhaul across the entire property. I mean, all on the same day. We did a complete new banquet rollout, library lounge, in-room dining, and Timbers all at once. So, I think, as far as the dining experience there, we wanted to freshen it up a little bit, right? It had been years, but we also wanted to make sure that we were a little bit careful about our customer base and stuff. We wanted to make sure, the foundation from the top down believes in the changes that we're doing of making things fresh, kind of keeping the food philosophy more in line with the foundation's philosophy of nurturing, taking care of yourself, doing things that are sustainable and good for the environment. So we pushed it a little bit. I think we kind of found a happy spot right now with some of the changes and tweaks that we've had, but you have some fun stuff on there. We have a little bit of items for everybody. Some small plates that can be shared. We have some larger steaks and stuff, obviously being in the Midwest, beef country. But I'm proud with where we're at. I don't think it's going to be the final resting spot, but I think it's been a good change for 6 months.
So you came on staff in 2024. You mentioned a lot of the changes started being implemented about 6 months ago. You used the word overhaul a couple minutes ago. What needed to be overhauled when you came in and examined the menus and just how things were running? Let's focus specifically on Timbers, because I feel like that's probably the restaurant that most people closely associate with Arbor Day Foundation.
Yeah, so from an overhaul standpoint, I don't mean necessarily just the food. There's a lot of things go into kitchens and stuff before you can even get to food, right? Staff morale, staffing levels, kitchen cleanliness, kitchen equipment. I'm a realist. I'm still a cook at heart. I don't want to set us up for failure. So, a lot of those things had to be addressed beforehand. We had to get, pots, pans, just simple things like that. Vita preps, blenders, things that you kind of take for granted. But again, the foundation was super supportive and helpful. I just don't think there was anybody in this position that really kind of pushed and asked for these things, so it kind of got neglected. But, as far as the menu goes, the overhauling of it, ingredients, where you're sourcing stuff, the quality of them, the attention to detail, the scratch cooking aspect of it. I always make sure that we kind of throw this out there, because I don't think a lot of people understand, the word scratch cooking kind of gets tossed around just like organic or farm to table or local or fine dining or anything like that. Like, I have a completely different, maybe perspective or opinion on what fine dining is or what local is compared to what, maybe you do or somebody else. But yeah, we went from, I'd say, and, I say this not as like to take away from where we were or whatever, but more of just to highlight of how far we've come, right? It's nothing against, just sometimes just things can't happen or you don't have the tools, but I'd say they were about across the property, about a 25% scratch kitchen, now 95% scratch kitchen, I'd say. Just like I told you, making our own hot sauces, making our own barbecue sauces, any meat fabrication, even some of our breads, across a fairly high volume property, stuff is made in-house. Cinnamon rolls, caramel apple roll, which we brought you, to try that we're going to be selling at Applejack this year. All those things kind of got us to where we are. So that's part of the overhaul process. Like I said, it's going to be continuous and ongoing. I'm happy with how far we've come, but again, it's not our final spot, I don't think.
Well, one of the biggest changes that you made is, when someone thinks of a farm, they're thinking of produce that's there. And that's something that you've really emphasized since you came on. You were like, hey, let's grow our own stuff. Let's make some gardens. Let's fill some greenhouses with things that we can use. And I found a stat. You said you were using 110 different heirloom seed varieties. How important was it for you to bring that garden to the plate? We'll say specifically at Timbers again.
Yeah, so it was honestly kind of a non-negotiable, because you hear Arbor Day Farm, and again, kind of going back to what different people's perspective of things are, or just opinions of what things are. I hear Arbor Day Farms, and my idea of a farm when you're talking about hotels and stuff is gardens and greenhouses and things that the restaurants can use, not just an expansive property that can grow stuff, right? So we didn't have that. And again, that was another thing from the top down with the foundation, that everybody was aligned with the same mission, the same goals. So yeah, it was something that we didn't start off small. 110 different varieties isn't a small thing to do, but it's been a learning curve. This year was pretty successful. It's great to just be able to walk down to the garden and then clip your basil, pick your tomatoes, have your squashes, all those things, and also just kind of share that experience and that growth and knowledge and stuff with the rest of your staff that has never had that experience. I've been fortunate enough to where I've worked at a couple places to where we've had, master gardeners in our garden and stuff, and to be able to share that with the next generation or even other chefs and stuff's been really great too.
How have you seen that kind of unlocked for the rest of the staff? You mentioned that this is something that you've experienced before, but for some of those other staff members who are getting to use this, like, literally farm-to-table produce for the first time, what has that unlocked for them as cooks?
I think it does give a little bit of a natural curiosity. It provides, to where you're forced to ask questions, right? Because you're so far out of your comfort zone to where maybe you don't know. It forces a little bit of curiosity and questions and studying and research and stuff on their own parts. And then, from a chef and culinary perspective, having, putting such an importance on locality and seasonality and stuff, it forces creativity and it forces menu changes. And, it's a lot easier to just call, your food purveyor and just say, can I get this? And then just stick with it year round, but I don't feel it's the way we should eat, and I don't feel it's the way we should cook either. So,
I mean, there are restaurants there's a restaurant here in Omaha that serves what I believe is the greatest BLT. Like, I've never had a BLT anything like it, but they only serve it for like 3 weeks a year when the tomatoes are like at their prime freshness. Mm-hmm. I would eat that sandwich. It would probably be 80% as good as it is at any time of the year. Like you said, if they used, a national Cisco, anything like that, but they won't do it, even if I ask them to do it, because they're like, no, we're going to stick to this product. And I feel like maybe you're not being that strict, but that's kind of what you're doing now at Arbor Day. You're saying we're gonna take our ingredients when they're at their best, and that's gonna make these dishes the absolute peak of what they can be.
Yeah, and good on them for standing by their, morals a little bit on that. I wish more places should do that, and we are being pretty strict. I mean, hospitality, we kind of have to walk a fine line because we are a hotel and we're still hospitality, right? But I think hospitality's just done a lot of things to not help itself in its past, with the customer's always right mentality and stuff. If it's not something you carry or it's not something that you're proud of getting and serving, then don't do it. I think that's really the end of it right there. It's like if you have something that you're not proud of, then I do this because I love it. I do it, because I want to keep teaching and educating and training people. And I do this because I want to hopefully make even just a little bit of a change on people's perception of what food is, can and should be, and what dining is, and, what it's like to work on a kitchen. And, so I'm probably a bit more of a stickler than most people that are executives of hotels or anything, to where, it can be a little bit difficult to work with me on some things, because I really do believe in standing by, your belief systems and stuff. And, if I do it because I love food, then if you take that, then what else do you have in it, so.
You just brought up that famous phrase, the diner is always right. And I have talked to chefs who staunchly will bend to give diners what they want, because ultimately, like you said, hospitality, they want their diners to have the absolute best experience, and they'll cater to that. And I've had discussions with chefs on the complete other end that say, nope, this is our menu, this is what we do, we're not flinching off that. Sounds like you're more on that end, but I want to leave it open-ended to you. Kind of what's your approach to the diner is always right?
Yeah, I fall in the middle. I'd say middle right, towards the this is what we have type of a thing. And it's not a pride thing. It's not a just to stick it to somebody type thing. It's more of just ensuring guest experience, right? Mm-hmm. And also a lot of what diners and just people in general have to realize throughout their everyday reactions. This isn't just in hospitality or just in restaurants or food or whatever. The more polite you are and the more polite you ask for something, the better off you're going to try to, you're probably going to get it a little bit more. If you come into the restaurant furious because something's off the menu and, and you're just going to be upset about it, versus politely asking and apologizing for not, looking at the menu before you you came there and stuff, then, you're probably not going to get your way as much. But yeah, I'm definitely more towards this is what we have. And, again, it goes towards quality control of, you try to do stuff off menu, you can't guarantee, how it's going to be, especially in, today's staffing scenarios and stuff, to where you maybe don't have as many people that can just go off menu and follow instructions and stuff as easily. And then, you're sacrificing, a dining room full of other people who's waiting on their food that, while you're stopping service or the line to do this one item for somebody. But yeah, it's like, I like providing hospitality. I like providing people happiness. I like providing them with, things that make them happy and meet their expectations and stuff. But I just, at the same time, people have to be able to receive service, and people have to be able to receive hospitality, and people have to understand that, while they are paying for a service and we're fortunate and grateful to have them and stuff, they're not the only people, in the dining room. So.
Well, I think that's the really important thing right there is, there are certain things that you can bend on and it's not really going to make that big of a difference, and that's fine. But there are certain asks or demands that affect your team in the kitchen and can then in turn affect other diners in the dining room. And it's just like, well, no, I can't. You had a reservation for 4. You can't walk in with 8 people and say, hey, can you make space for us now? Maybe that works, but that puts a huge strain on the team, because now they're making twice as many dishes for that table that they weren't expecting. We don't need to go into it totally, but I totally see where you're coming from, and I agree with you. So you arrive on staff in 2024, and as you're examining everything, not just menu, but kind of service style, what equipment we have, what does my team look like, everything, how do you make determinations on this is something that I need to change, like ASAP? How do you kind of prioritize? Because I'm sure you walk in and you notice, okay, there are these many things I need to change, but you can't change everything at once. Mm-hmm. How do you prioritize, like, what's the most important things that I need to start making improvements on first?
So for me, I think it always starts off with the human aspect of it, the staff, the people, just because I am a believer in, we work too hard and too many hours and miss out on too many things and stuff to not enjoy what we're doing. So if we can't have that positive morale and, group camaraderie, then it's going to be tough, and I don't want to be miserable at work. I never, stay somewhere where I'm miserable at work. And I think that's one of the things that, we took care of right away. And I think people were most shocked about, and kudos to all my staff, that stuck it out and stayed, and kudos to all the ones that we brought in, that really helped with it as well. My sous chefs that were there, and, our HR department for getting some of the right candidates in and really focusing on that. And we have some J1s too, which I don't know if you know what a J1 program is, but it's visa workers. And I've had that everywhere I've been, every hotel I've been in. Some of those people are some of the most amazing workers and stuff. They're happy to be here. They listen. They work hard. And you learn so much from them too, from a cultural perspective and stuff, that it's kind of a give-take relationship with it. But yeah, where we're at now, that was the biggest thing that we had to do first. And then then we started working on training, right? Because I can make whatever menu I want, right? If it can't be executed, then so what? It doesn't do any good for me to put a menu out there just for an ego or for my brand or anything like that. I want it to be something that everybody enjoys making, everybody feels comfortable, doing, and everybody can be proud of. It's not just what I want. So those were the first 2 things: the training, the staffing, the morale. And then we started looking at, okay, food. What are we going to do? What can we, kind of execute well, but elevate, and what's going to be received well? Because it's been a while since I've been, cooking in the Midwest and stuff for the the clientele. And I'm born and raised in the Midwest. I was born in Kansas, and but then I've bounced all over the country and stuff. And there are pockets of fine food and stuff everywhere. So like I said, we did a lot of talking and thinking about what we want to do that elevated us, put us on people's radars, but didn't scare a lot of people off, right? You don't want to have a bunch of things on there that people just can't pronounce or understand or never heard of. So, and then the last thing was equipment. We've gotten a couple of pieces in, and again, big support from the top down on the foundation. We've got a whole brand new kitchen line coming probably in the next month or so. I won't say the price tag on it, but you could go out and buy a Ferrari for it, So a really nice one, all custom line from Vulcan, and again, it was handpicked by me, and everybody supported it, and so it's just, I guess, kind of what I want to say is it's great to be somewhere where you've got the support from the top down, no matter what, right? I've worked at a couple of other places where they want change, they want this, that, and then as soon as it happens, people get scared and they want to go back to the way it was. And so it's great to see how far we've come, the amount of support that we got, and I think another year from now, I think it's going to be even more impressive.
I want to go back to something that you just mentioned there, because it was something that I wanted to ask you about, that I'm interested in, and that having a hotel restaurant is so unique because you want to have a menu that is really fun and it entices people like me, the foodies, who will come just to eat the food and look at a menu, and I don't just want to see, chicken fried steak, they have a ribeye, they have a hamburger, like that kind of stuff.
Don't forget the pancakes.
The pancakes, yeah.
That's I've gotten.
You've gotten some pancakes comments.
I've gotten some pancake comments,
but when I look at a menu, I want to see something interesting. I want to see something fun that's going to draw me in. So you have that crowd that you're wanting to entice, especially because you're in Nebraska City. If you're going to get people from Omaha or get people from Lincoln to come to your restaurant, there's got to be a reason to drive that 40 minutes. But you also have a ton of people who are just coming to the hotel, and they're staying at the hotel and they're staying at the farm because the farm is a great experience. And then they're just going to come to the restaurant, and they're not necessarily foodies looking for something amazing, but you still want them to have a great meal and have them to have a great experience. Mm-hmm. And like you said, not scare them off with, cuts of steak or ingredients that they don't understand. How do you walk that line and cater to both of those audiences? It's
tough. And I don't know that we'll ever. You're not ever going to please everybody, right? Yeah. The same way the customer's not always right. I'm not always right. We're not ever going to make everybody happy. But I think kind of looking at food that I would like to eat, because I'm not super. I've worked in Forbes 5-star places and James Beard places and stuff like that, and while that training and that experience is wonderful, and I would never do it otherwise. It's not the way that I like to cook. So I still like to treat the ingredients properly and not mold something into something it's not. I want, if it's the height of tomato season, why am I taking that and making it something that doesn't taste like what it is? If you
don't need a tomato foam.
If you're not, well, I'm not against it, but it's still got to taste like a tomato,
right? Yeah.
Like textures and stuff. That's different. If you're trying to change something just for a textural component, or or maybe you're using the cores of the tomato to therefore turn into something else. So that way you're utilizing the whole product, and that may be a tomato foam or a gelée or a chip or a powder or whatever. But yeah, I think it's very hard to try to get people, to be open to new things that they're not familiar with, especially when it comes to money, right? It's tough, right? I'm conservative over my money with some things. I might have some issues with vehicles, but But when I go out to eat and stuff, I eat conservatively. But I also, the style of food that I like, the small plates, the sampling, and I wouldn't necessarily say tapas, but something to where you just get to try a lot of variety with a relatively low financial risk, right? It's a lot harder to get me to go spend $100 on a steak that I may not like the cut, or it's gristly, or it's salty, or something like that, versus it is for me to go spend $100 on 5 different small plates that I can share with the wife or the family or something, right? So I think we've done a lot to open some eyes, and we got a lot of backlash. Like we did. Like the first menu change, we got a lot of backlash, and it was all expected.
What kind of backlash?
Man, some just really just like get out of here, bring back the old stuff. I mean, this is stuff again that people have been eating for 5 years already. So, bring back the old menu. It's you're cooking for your ego. The quality of the ingredients before were better than they are now, and it's just like some of those I can't even.
It's just patently false.
Yeah, I just can't. I can't even. Argue with it, because it's like I know what the ingredients were before. I know what they are now. And it's just, so those ones I kind of just push aside. And then you look for the little ones that maybe have some validity in it. I always look for things of like actual things that aren't opinionated, right, as much. It's really cold in here. Sorry. I had to give you a jacket, but some of the ones that, or maybe a common trend that we can control of, like, if you constantly see something like, oh, this meat's tough, this is, too cold, those things we look at. But a lot of the ones that when we first happened, they're just straight, it's just heartstring comments more than anything. People that were upset because things changed. They had their own little comfort zone, and, just were upset that it wasn't what it was anymore. And it wasn't me going in there and doing it for my own entertainment. It was, that was what I was kind of asked to do and brought here to do. And like I said, from the top down throughout the entire foundation, and even from the bottom up now, like our cooks, and I feel like everybody at the property is supportive of it. And I think we stand pretty strong and united with the changes that we've made. And now that people see it, at first, even some of our own employees and stuff were pretty apprehensive because they knew, but now that they see it, it's good. It's good.
Well, yeah, anytime there's change, even if it is great change, there's going to be some resistance because there's unknown that comes along with it. And, I mean, humans are creatures of comfort, and if I have been eating the same steak off a menu for 5 years, like you said, and I come in and all of a sudden the menu's changed and my steak is gone, even if the new steak is better, there's going to be part of me that's just like, oh, shoot, yeah, that was my dish.
And again, like, I don't take anything away from consistency and comfort and stuff. There's those sections of, the restaurant industry and stuff that do them well, and, props to you, the whole, I mean, think about what is the movie, I'm not a big, I don't read a lot of cookbooks and watch a lot of like The Bears and stuff like that, but one with Bradley Cooper in it.
Oh, Burnt.
Yeah, okay. So like there's like basically one interaction that just kind of has stuck with me out of like a few films and stuff that I have seen, and his is when he's eating is it a Burger King burger?
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
So I think it's basically, the sous chef lady that he's interviewing is sitting down and she's turning her nose up at it, and it's like, well, what do you have wrong with this? Because it's consistent. Like imagine building an empire based off of consistency, right? Like that's admirable too. Mm-hmm. But not every place has to be that, and not every place should be that. And I don't want to cook that way. I don't want to make the same thing for the rest of my life. So that's again, I don't take anything away from the people that want consistency. I swear if my mom ever changes the recipe for a burrito pie, we're having a family meltdown, you know, but I just don't want to eat that every day. I don't want to cook that every day. So
Sure. Let's get back to the people real quick, because you mentioned that was priority number one for you when you came in. And when my wife and we came out probably 6 or 8 weeks ago, and we had a fantastic dinner and brunch at Timbers, and we got a chance to chat with you. And one of the things that stuck out from what you said is you said it's encouraging to see how excited and engaged my cooks have gotten over the last 6 months. What was the change? When did you start to see that shift in them?
Oh man, it took a little bit of time, but you know, I even had a sous chef. Probably, you know, it was I think my second day there. I already knew that it was going to be, just from my interview there. Whenever I was on property, I knew it was going to be, the staffing deal was going to be an issue, but. You know, I have a sous chef that whenever I sat down with him office, his first words to me were, "Just so you know, I'm looking to leave." And I was like, it's my day 2 there and stuff, you know. And I told him, I said, well, you know, understood. Won't hold it against you if you do. You know, I've worked in places. But I said, just give me a little bit of time to get some stuff fixed. And, you know, 13 months later, he's still here. He's running the banquets department. He's a super solid guy, happy he stuck it out. So it took a little bit of time, but I think they started seeing change right away. And then I started seeing change in them probably, I'd say, a few weeks before the menu launch, whenever we started actually working on the menus. They started seeing some stuff. They asked questions. What is this? What is this item you brought in? You know, they started seeing some of the new china that we were getting in, some of the new equipment. Like, okay, this is for real. Because everybody's been promised, changed, or lied to, or whatever. So sometimes it just takes seeing it before you buy into it. So that was really whenever they started the most, was a few weeks whenever they started seeing some of the food and the ingredients and seeing the excitement from me and the sous chefs. And that's when everybody was really getting on board.
And how energizing is that for you as a leader to not just have, you know, a team of line cooks that, you know, are essentially, I don't want to say robots, but they're just, you tell them what to do and they do it. But like to have them come in and be inquisitive and be like, whoa, what is this technique? Why are we doing it this way? I've never seen this ingredient before. How do we incorporate this? What flavor is this imparting? How exciting is it for you as a leader to start to see those wheels turning in their minds?
Super awesome. Like I'm a naturally very inquisitive person. I ask why all the time. I've gotten in trouble for asking why throughout a lot of my life with places I've worked and stuff, because a lot of chefs want robots. Me, I tell everybody all the time, I don't want cooks. I don't want to train cooks. I don't have any interest in any of that. I want to train chefs. I want to train people that want to be chefs. I want to train people that want my job. I don't want to train somebody that wants to be a cook for 20 years. You know, I don't, because I feel like everybody should always want a little bit better for themselves, right? And, you know, I've had some great cooks in the past, and I've had, you know, some great chefs in the past, and I feel like my training and my excitement and stuff towards the food and everything has always been something that they've kind of enjoyed. And I want everybody to be better than I am, you know. I feel like if I give them all the information that I have and they have their own ideas and stuff, they should eventually, you know, be just as good as I am. But, you know, and some of them hopefully better, right? I think that's a great indicator of how well you do in a kitchen is look at some of your cooks and stuff and where they are and how much they've progressed and, you know, where some chefs are. And yeah, it's great to have people that are just getting more excited about food and, you know, coming up with their own specials. You know, they may not ever see the light of day and stuff, but darn it, it's nice to have people, hey, you know, I was thinking about trying this. And then you just get to sit down and talk, you know, have a natural conversation about creation and flavor profiles and techniques and stuff. And 80% of it may go way over their head or in one ear and out the other and stuff. But just knowing that they feel open enough and to come to you, and also, you know, like, I welcome failure. Like, I never will get mad at somebody for screwing something up the first time. I'll never get mad at somebody for screwing something up the second time, really, probably either, unless it's because it's the same mistake. You know, a lot of people don't believe me when I say this, but recipes, don't believe them, don't have them. So we cook, which puts a lot more strain on me and the sous chefs, especially the sous chefs, but I don't believe in cooking by recipes. I believe by cooking by taste and instinct, and, you know, so that also helps create a little bit more of an inquisitive cook, because if I say, hey, you know, this time, you know, we don't need to use as much lemon juice, or we don't need to have any lemon juice because, you know, maybe the other item that we're using, the tomatoes or something like that, have a lot more acidity in them because of the variety and stuff. So, yeah, it's great to have people coming around.
And I love what you just said, because that's the beauty of cooking. Like, when you're baking, yeah, you usually have to follow a lot more of a set recipe because you can't make adjustments in the middle. But when you're cooking, you can play around a little bit. I mean, like, with proteins, there's going to be, if you get, you know, an animal butchered and you get a bunch of steaks in, some of the cuts are going, or some of the steaks are going to be fattier than others. Some are going to be a little bit naturally tougher than others. And when you're cooking, you can make those adjustments on the fly, and you can say, oh, this one needs to cook a little bit more longer than this one. This one needs a touch more salt. You can even, like, ask your chefs, like, what do you think needs to change about this? I love that. I think that they're, you know, you want to have some baseline and a standard, obviously, when you're creating a dish, but cooking without a set recipe where it's just like, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, but for allowing for a little bit of adjustment to make a dish better, I think that's just so smart.
Yeah, and we have, you know, some of our stuff will have a list of ingredients in it, obviously, for keeping track of allergies and stuff like that, but very rarely is it a scaled out actual recipe. And I personally, just like I said, I don't like recipes. I don't ever cook with them. And I just don't believe that they develop cooks. I think it's more of a crutch than anything, because then you'll have people that just say, well, I followed the recipe.
There's no creativity in it.
Did you taste it, though?
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't taste anywhere near the same. It's because, like I said, you know, maybe this time the onions are super, super cured, and the last time they were really wet, and maybe this time the carrots are super sweet, and last time they weren't. And it's so, like, again, you can have that foundation and stuff, but I really want to be the one that helps them build the foundation up, right? And as you said, because eventually it's harder work now, but eventually it makes your job a lot easier. You know, if you got a whole squad of cooks and sous chefs that can taste their way around something and recognize what it's missing and stuff, you'll be a lot better off, or somebody will be, even if they leave me or whatever and go somewhere else, somebody's going to be better off with it. But yeah, I'm not a big recipe guy.
All right. Next, we're going to do a segment called Voice from the Dining Room. So this is, I source questions on Facebook and just ask, hey, guys, I got Chef Kasper coming on the show. What do you want to hear? And
ooh, it's cold, man.
I'm sorry. I should have warned you. I always wear long sleeves.
I'm a warm weather guy, too, though. I know I look like I got a nice winter coat on me, but I'm a warm weather guy. It's cold, man.
Our question today comes from Brian Sullivan. He said, Chef Joel Marr, who is the chef at Primrose now, was at Lot 2 in Omaha back in the day. He said that chefs should think about opening and or creating something in a small town because they need good food too. Obviously, Nebraska City isn't like tiny, but it is smaller than Lincoln or than Omaha. What are the opportunities and the challenges of creating a restaurant in that environment?
Well, yeah, I agree with it. But also opening up something ambitious or something that's out of the norm, especially in a smaller population, is a lot more high risk, right? Fortunately for us, we are kind of sheltered by that because we bring in a lot of our own customers, right? We're not relying on just, a set population or a set group of people. But yeah, totally agree that, we shouldn't think of small towns or, certain regions of the country or states or even just certain whole states. I mean, you hear people that say, oh, well, there's nothing good to eat in this state, or, people that think that the only fine food that happens is Denver, LA, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, all that stuff. And there's a lot of good food. You just got to find it, and it's crazy how like fine dining and people that like good food kind of follow you around and stuff. And it's just not even on purpose. And I got a fun story about that I'll tell you someday. But yeah, I agree with it. And then as far as, what's some of the troubles and, things that you might experience in doing it, obviously, kind of like what we discussed earlier, people like their comfort levels, right? They want their McDonald's cheesy, and they want their, Pizza Hut pizza and their Valentino's buffet and stuff. But I think if you can kind of put out an olive branch of some sort to get people to at least try the first time, and you make a good impression on them, then you can have your new regulars, because again, that same comfort level. So if they go there once and you impress them and they're like, man, that, maybe that steak was way more expensive than I get anywhere else, but the view and the other things that we have going for us, it's something to where we can be their new anniversary night, their new birthday night, their new date night, whatever. But yeah, it's important, that's why we're doing it. Yeah, we could have just left everything the same. The foundation could have just kept doing what they were doing, and nobody would have batted an eye at it, but we chose a different path.
One of the smartest things that I've heard a chef tell me is most of the time when, this isn't all the time, but most of the time when a customer complains, they just want to be heard. And if you hear them out and if you authentically listen to them, even if you don't provide what they're looking for, they'll still be more receptive. So like somebody comes in and says, you took the meatloaf off the menu. I love that meatloaf. I want that meatloaf back. If you just say, well, too bad, the meatloaf sucked, I put these 8 dishes on that are better, yeah, they're going to be pissed off, and that's just going to be a bad interaction. But if you say, hey, I'm really sorry, we couldn't source those ingredients anymore, or that was just a dish that, I thought needed updating. I understand that you love that, and I think that that's great. I have a dish that I think is kind of similar. How would you feel about trying this? That kind of smooths that path out a little bit, at least. Maybe, that doesn't mean they're going to be happy immediately, but it at least opens the conversation a little bit and opens their mind to be like, this isn't necessarily bad just because it's different. In fact, it could be a lot better. I just have to try it and have an open mind with it. Yeah, no,
I agree, and that's something I've kind of lived on for a while, is everybody wants a voice, and, it's up to us to, yes, provide a service, and also, if something's not good and not going right, we should be, as hospitality professionals and stuff, be able to recognize it and be able to come up with a course of action. Like you said, one of the best ones is, apologize. Obviously, I'm sorry, that it's not here. We're not trying to ruin your day, your year, your life, whatever it is. Trust me, I don't want that on my shoulders, but here's an option. Give them an option. And I'm definitely not a fan of stuff for free. I think that's another thing where the industry has just gone, through the course of the years. So I'm okay with giving them something for free to try before, but not, hey, I ate something and I don't like it. And to me, that's just kind of reinforcing a behavior that you can't be successful with in a restaurant. You can't just give something away for free. If it's something where, it's an option of, like, again, going back to the pancakes, these pancakes, but,
poor chefs having PTSD here. Just think about pancakes.
I never knew somebody would love their Bisquick pancake mix as much as they did. We have somebody that's been coming to the restaurant 4 or 5 times a year for 20 years, and now they're going to be looking for a new place that has pancakes. It's like, I did the math, and it's like if they were ordering $12 pancakes 4 times a year for 20 years, it's like, I'm missing out on much. But, it's like, hey, sorry, we don't have pancakes, but here's our lovely French toast. Mm-hmm. Try this, complimentary. Sorry, hope you come back and buy many more in the future. Mm-hmm. Right? To me, that's an acceptable solution to an issue, and hopefully it doesn't get to a open table review or a Yelp review or whatever, to where then it's just who do you believe type of a thing. But yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with the customer needs to be heard, and we need to do a better job of listening sometimes. And at the same time, like what we discussed earlier, it's like customers also have to understand how to receive service, receive hospitality, and understand that, we're there to serve them, not to be servants to them. Plenty of other people come in there, and we have to be mindful of everyone.
How did you get into cooking originally?
Shoulder surgeries. I had big aspirations of playing baseball for the Red Sox, and didn't work out, obviously. But fortunately for me, right? Because otherwise I wouldn't have this opportunity.
I was going to say, fortunately for us.
I could be in the booth in Fenway.
That would be so much worse than being in this cold
in this
podcast
frigid,
studio.
This frigid. I mean, you even got the ice on the wall. I should have known back there just by looking at it. It looks like I'm in an ice cube.
We're in a little igloo, yeah. It's the vibe we're going for.
But yeah, it's so I had a couple shoulder surgeries. Loved baseball. I was doing taking accounting courses. And, man, didn't like that. Obviously, I'm not the type that can sit still and do the same stuff every day. Didn't know what I wanted to do. I enjoyed cooking, but it wasn't anything I ever was just like that passionate about, I guess, But I kept trying to go to school, and then realized I couldn't go to school without sports, because I didn't have any reason to get good grades, or my parents couldn't give me whoopings anymore and couldn't take away the keys to my car because I was in college. So it's like, if I didn't get good grades, but then I went to the country club and started cooking, and it was like, oh, this is fun. I enjoyed it kind of had that intensity, the rush and stuff. And I did that for a year or so and decided I wanted to go to culinary school, and went to culinary school, and got honors there. And, it was kind of during culinary school that I was like, okay, I'm pretty good at this. I have maybe a little bit of natural ability and some curiosity. I think especially in food and stuff, if you're a curious person, it can help you out a lot. And this was before, I don't know, when did like Instagram and stuff come out? It's so easy now because you got endless ideas and stuff at your fingertips, right?
Maybe mid 2010s, somewhere in there is when it really rose to prominence.
Showing my age, I think this was before Instagram and stuff, or before I knew what it was. But nowadays you have like idea after idea, and you can plagiarize and stuff, and that's why it's, I've read 2 cookbooks in my life, and I'm like terrified of not having like original ideas and stuff, and what's original anymore. But I just want to make sure that I'm not influenced, and I'm not getting swayed one way to the other to recreate something that somebody else has done, right? But yeah, I went there.
So wait, real quick, that is a very interesting statement to me. If you don't, like, cookbooks and social media are where I feel like a lot of chefs draw their inspiration from. And again, it's not seeing something and then copying it, but it's seeing something and thinking like, oh, how can I use that technique or that ingredient or something in my food? If you're not using those as inspiration, where do you get your inspiration from?
Like I said, just being a natural, inquisitive person, or
okay,
it's, again, cooking with seasons helps a lot too. If you say, okay, you're just getting inundated with this one product, right? Because it's like end of the season, you're picking tomatoes off the vine like crazy, or melons and stuff. It's like you have to come up with 1,000 different ways to use them, right? And it's just, and then just I've been fortunate to work in some places where they just let you experiment. I've made plenty of horrible stuff, and I've made plenty of things that didn't work out. But I also think that I was kind of so I had a great it was Chris Wolf in culinary school. He asked me, he's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I want to work in a Forbes kitchen. I never even knew what a Forbes was, but he talked about it once, how he worked at Addison and San Diego. And he's like, okay. He's like, let's sit down and pull up all the Forbes restaurants right now. So we sat down, pulled them up. And then he's like, I think these 3 are going to be the best for you. Because he looked at the chefs or he looked at the menus. And I sent a resume to the Inn at Little Washington, which thankfully I dodged that one. Nothing. They're just kind of stale in a lot of stuff they did right back then for a hungry, cook and stuff. And I sent one to Lautrec in Pennsylvania, which isn't the most well-known one, but Kristen Butterworth worked at the Inn at Little Washington and Sea Island and stuff. And you talk about your OG kind of cutthroat, kitchen that you couldn't do it nowadays because people just leave, right? But it was a great experience, and loved it, and thought about following her around to some places and stuff. But she went down to New Orleans, and then now she's back at Sea Island, I think. But yeah, it's my whole creative thing is just, I don't know. I think some people just have that side in their brain, right? If you ask why, if you see stuff, I see this and maybe that triggers, a textural component. And I'm like, man, that texture would look really cool in the wintertime on, a beet dish. And maybe it's like, okay, well, we know that we can get some white glacier beets. So maybe we make a white glacier beet and goat cheese panna cotta. And so it kind of just goes down a rabbit hole, really. And I don't know, but.
So the wheels in your brain are just constantly turning, not just when you're eating, not when you're at restaurants, not when you're on social media, but just as you're existing, you're constantly drawing inspiration from what's going on around you.
Yeah, I mean, nature's a big one. You just see things. And again, it doesn't have to be anything food related at all. It's just like, say you see some visual, maybe it's a color, maybe it's a sound, maybe it's a texture of, of something you see out in nature or just in public or something. But yeah, I think you can be triggered through a lot of different forms and methods and stuff. And also, one of the 2 cookbooks I ever read was a Stronce cook's book, and they discussed a lot about like theory and stuff versus just having recipes in it. So it was a good first book to get. And my favorite chef that I've ever worked with, Scott Myers, I think he's in Montana now. We kind of lost touch, but he was a super awesome guy that just, whenever I was in Virginia, he's just like, do what you want, like he's one of those where maybe he saw the talent and he's like, if I can gear this guy up, it's going to make my job way easier, and I didn't care, how long I worked or how many days or anything. So yeah, I was fortunate enough real early on to have some really great people that kind of understand the direction to push me maybe before I did. And that's why I never really thought about it till now, but maybe that's why I kind of like the training aspect and the perception of what a kitchen's still important to me.
Unfortunately, you've had a long and varied career. I would love to be able to look at each stop and like pull out the little things that have influenced you as a chef. Unfortunately, we don't have time for that today.
Another time. I've thrown some curveball. I like to throw curveballs and stuff. People are like, well, why'd you go there? And it's like, why not? Who's to say it's going to be a bad experience? It is what you make it, right? Like, I've had people say the same thing about, why'd you come here? It's like, well, maybe if you turn it into something great,
Why did you come here? Why did you come to Nebraska City?
Oh, like I said, part of it, a big part of it is the property's beautiful.
Yep.
Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment. I like challenges. I like to, be ridiculed over not having pancakes. I'm going to bring it up one more time that I'm not talking about pancakes anymore. You know who you are. But, yeah, and then the property, like I said, it's got so much potential. You can't look at that property from a culinary perspective, and if you're not a serious, chef culinarian, you can't look at that property and go wild and say, I can do this here, this here, this here. We have these, things already in place, greenhouses and horticulturists and orchard managers and social media and marketing and HR and food and beverage director. And it's like, now you just got to put in the legwork, really. Like, a lot of the tools around you are there. Now you just kind of got to assemble the puzzle. But I'd say that's the big reason. And I was tired of 8 months of snow in Colorado. Like I said, I'm freezing here. Imagine me in the wintertime in Colorado all the time. Right? It's just walking around in a permafrost. But yeah, I don't regret it. A lot of people have questioned it, and maybe from a paper standpoint, some of the stuff that I've done hasn't made sense, but I don't regret any of them, and all of them have been really great experiences. And yeah, I've done some great stuff and met great people and everything along the way. So
all those stops have formed you and given you skills, given you knowledge that have instructed the chef that you are today. And I'll just say I'm grateful that you ended up here, whatever the circumstances were that led you to Arbor Day Foundation, because the meals that we've had out at Timbers are fantastic. And mentioning a BLT, I still remember, we could only eat so many meals when we were out there, but we stopped by Porter's, and they were like, no, you got to try these pork belly sliders. Holy smokes, man.
Yeah.
Or pork belly BLT sliders. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, those are fantastic too. So very, very glad that whatever it was that led you here, I want to say it was a good decision.
Yeah, and I don't, whenever you have these things and the people that come in there and have them, a lot of it's my creating, and it's my, maybe my groundwork and stuff, but I'm by no means the one that's doing it all.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So I can't take the credit, and stuff all the time. I can to some extent because, it might be my training and stuff, but I'm only as good as the people that are there. And, I think that's why it's important to invest in the staff that you have. And, like I said, I'm fortunate enough to have some really good ones. And I'm fortunate enough that, a couple of them stuck around that didn't think that they were going to, but yeah, I just want everybody to know that the final decision and stuff is mine. So if you're mad about something not being on the menu pancakes, that
I knew we could get
that is my decision. That's my decision. I'll take that one. And guess what? I will fight that as many times as I can, because now it's just not getting them. But so decisions like that are mine, but the actual execution and stuff on a daily basis, a lot of that credit goes to the people that are there, right? Mm-hmm. And that's been a big thing for me to kind of get around is, a lot of the places it's been where I have to see every plate of food, and I don't feel comfortable if I don't and stuff. And I've enjoyed more of the putting trust where, it's earned type of a thing, and working and focusing on some of the other side of things, like doing this or working on, what does 2026 look like, from a culinary perspective across the property, or how can we, integrate some more experiences. So shout out to all of my staff, thank you. And yeah.
All right, Chef, we're kind of getting up against the clock here, but I got two more questions for you that I like to ask just about everybody that comes on this podcast. First one, what is one thing about restaurants or the hospitality industry that you feel most of your guests don't understand that you wish they did understand?
I'd say, not to beat a dead horse, but the understanding how to receive hospitality. can you be off your phone when the server's talking to you and describing things? Do you have to have, your silverware moved apart each time a course is being brought to you? I feel like a lot of the times we've gotten so far away from what food was historically known for. Not only just a sustenance thing, but a community thing, catching up, a talking, breaking bread, type of thing. So I think that's probably one of the biggest ones. And I wish, it's like, I think there's two things everybody should have to do in their life, I think, in order to, this is one of them's, it's like, I think you should have to drive a semi to understand, because everybody gets mad at semi drivers, right? Why are you taking so long to pass and stuff? And the other ones, they should work in a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you had those experiences, maybe you'd be a little bit calmer on a daily basis, But yeah, I think understanding how to receive hospitality and just being appreciative, right? There was a little window there in COVID when, everybody came back after it being closed down, and everybody was just so grateful, right? You could do no wrong in the restaurant. You could just roach somebody's steak, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, it's so good," and it lasted for like 2 weeks, and then
we all got entitled again.
And it came back to, "What are you doing? You ruined my life," and it's like, oh, sorry. That was a quick. I wish it would have lasted as long as COVID did, but it didn't.
Well, to get you out of here on a positive note, what is your favorite part about being a part of the restaurant industry?
Oh, the creating. Yeah. That's something I miss. I miss a lot from just whenever I was a cook, and you could just have your hands on food every day. And it's something that I would like to see us capitalize on a little bit more, maybe. I'd like to see some sort of like an R&D kitchen, chef's kitchen type thing up by the farm and the gardens and stuff that could just be, reservations only, off menu, chef's table type experience.
God, that sounds amazing.
So that way I could get in there and really just no holds bar type food thing. So that'd be awesome. But yeah, the creativity is the most important thing to me.
Well, here's one person who's hoping that dream of yours comes to pass, because that sounds incredible. But even if it doesn't, or even if somebody is just thinking about coming out to Arbor Day, whether they're going to go to Timbers, whether they're going to go to Porter's, I highly encourage people to do that. It is well worth the drive. I know that it hasn't always been easy, it hasn't always been fun for you making these changes, but what you've done is important, and I think that people are understanding that. They're becoming more receptive to it, and, I mean, if anyone has any complaints, you send that short rib out to them and tell them to complain anymore, because that thing is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I'm not oblivious to the fact that we're going to make plenty of mistakes too.
Sure,
right?
Of course, and everyone
there's going to be
mistakes.
things. Yeah, I mean that's hospitality. That's one thing that
That's life. That's not just hospitality.
The two things that they have in common is human involvement.
Yeah.
Anytime you have human involvement in anything, humans are imperfect by nature. Mistakes are going to be made. So we're going to make plenty of them. I hope we do way more good things than we do make mistakes. But it's like I just think we're a bit of a hidden gem out there. Beautiful property, beautiful grounds, great food. And I think 2026 is going to be pretty exciting too. So hopefully.
Can't wait to see what you have in store. Chef Kasper, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Omaha, as always, thanks for eating with us.